Morning. Sorry if I look a bit rough, I've only just woke up about 5 or 10 minutes ago. What I want to show you in this video is how to turn this photo into this photo using Photoshop and Lightroom. As you know, I've done my ankle in, if you watched my last video, and for the last 2 or 3 weeks all I've done every day, all day, is go through old photos because I can't get out and have a go at re-editing them. Now, I've only been doing photography 2 years and using Lightroom and Photoshop for 2 years, so I'm not very skilled in Photoshop. I know a little bit, I would say I know Lightroom fairly well. Photoshop, not so much. I kind of fumble my way through it. So, as I've been editing photos, what I've been doing is I've been posting them to social media sites. And I uploaded quite a few photos yesterday to Facebook, and I had a lot of people asking me how I edited them to get them looking that way, and they wish they could do it that way and they wish they were good. And I don't class myself as being amazing at all. I kind of, like I said, I stumble my way through Photoshop until I get the result I want. So what I wanted to do in this video is to try and do a little tutorial, really, to try and show you how I get the look that some of these photos have finished up with. Now, as I said, I'm no expert at Photoshop and I'm no expert photographer. So I'm going to kind of show you how to put a normal photo and to kind of give it a bit of a kick, make it kind of pop a little bit. Now, with Photoshop, there's 1,000 ways to do the same thing, in my opinion. There's buttons to do it, there's menus to do the same thing, there's layers. Now, I don't want to overcomplicate things in this tutorial. I want to make it as easy and simple to follow as possible. Now, I might do one process one way, and you might think, well, why is he doing it that way? There's a much easier way of doing it. There is, and some days I do use those other processes to achieve that little bit that I'm trying to do. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. But what I'm going to do in this video is try and make it as easy and simple to follow as possible. And I'll try and do it as though you've never used Photoshop before. So I'm waffling on, ain't I? You'll get the idea. I'll make it as easy as possible to follow. I'll try and get straight to the point, and I'll try not to waffle on too much. I've no idea how long the video will last, but as I said, I'll try and keep it short and sweet. All I ask in return for me spreading these words of wisdom is that you give the video a like if you like it, obviously if it helps you out. And if you could, I'd really appreciate if you subscribe to my channel. Even if you never watch another video, I'm just trying to hit that 1,000 mark. So yeah, stop waffling on and we'll go and have a look. Okay, so as promised, here's a photo of a pelican that I'm going to edit and try and get the same kind of effect as I did on the other photos that I posted online. So straight away you can see it's not the best kind of exposure. I did use spot metering on the like the white balance, so it only kind of picked up the main white of the bird, but I still underexposed it. This is a photo I took when I first kind of had my camera, so I didn't really know what I was doing. So the kind of first step that I normally do is I just kind of get it round about right using a few of the sliders. So we'll start at the top and we'll just go to the exposure and we'll just bump the exposure up a little bit. It hasn't got to be up a lot because all this is going to change again. Add a little bit of contrast to it. Bring the highlights down. Bring the shadows up and add a little bit of clarity to it and a little bit of texture. At this point, that's all I do. I may crop the image if the image needs cropping, but for this instance it's all okay. The next step, this is where it's one of those processes where you can do it quite a lot of different ways. Now what I want to do is I want to black all the background out. Now if you're using Lightroom, there's a few ways you can do this. So if you go to masking, click the masking tool, masking cog, and then select background, what that will do is it will make a selection of just the background. Now if you've seen the other photos, I like to keep some of this reflection in of the water, so what I'll do here is I'll go to the subtract button here and press brush, Now that'll open up a brush, and then I'll paint some of the water back in, just where I want it to. I don't want it included in the mask. I'll just make that a bit bigger, make it a bit faster. Now this is entirely up to you, how much of the kind of reflections you want to bring back in. So we'll just paint quite a bit of it back in and take what we don't want away at the end. So anything that still kind of shows red is obviously going to be included in the mask. So you want to kind of make sure all the red, or what you want to keep, is no longer red. So something like that. That'll do. And then so anything we do now will only affect the red. So obviously I want to make that black. So if I go to the exposure, and I'll just bump the exposure right down to black, and that completely blackens the background straight away. From here, what we'll do then, create new mask, and then I'm going to use a linear gradient, and I'm just going to drag that up from the bottom over the water, and I'm going to bump up the clarity. You can see the water getting a bit brighter. Now if I use the show overlay mask button there, you'll see it's gone onto the bird as well. Now I don't want it to affect the bird, so I'll click on subtract with brush, and I'll just paint over the bird because I don't want that included. So again, everything in red is being affected, the rest of it isn't. If I click off the show overlay, you'll see that's still now all bright. So click the edit button again here. So from here I can carry on doing what I want to do in Lightroom, but I like to do it in Photoshop. I find it a lot easier. So I'll go into Lightroom, and then I'll come back. Sorry, I'll go into Photoshop, then I'll come back into Lightroom and show you how to do it in Lightroom if you want to do it in Lightroom. So the way to get this to go over into Photoshop is you right click on the image, editing, and then editing Photoshop. Now what that does is it opens up Photoshop, and you can edit the image from there. So here we are now opened in Photoshop. On fit screen. Now the first thing I do is I right click on the background layer here and duplicate layer. Now what I want to do first is I want to kind of darken all this green in the water and only leave like the white bits. So the way I do that is I come over here to the dodge and burn tool. Depending on how you last used it, it might show your dodge icon here, which is like a lollipop, or your burn tool, which is like, I think it's like a hand. So click on the burn tool, and then go up to the top and click mid, where it says range, pull it down and click on mid-tones. Keep your exposure around 38, and with a small brush, which you change up the top here, and a hardness of the soft end, which is at 0, is I paint over the green or any of the colours that's not kind of white that I want to delete and blur into the background. So I just go over all of this. Try not to go on the white because obviously that's what you want to stand out. So after a quick kind of go over, I mean this isn't finished yet, but it kind of gives you the idea of where the shadow is going to be. Now if, say for instance, I go over that and I think, oh no, I wish I'd have kept that bit there, the way to take it back is to go up to the tool here, which is the history brush, and then you can just paint, click on the history brush, just paint back over it, and you can get them shadows back. Now this bit here of when you're doing the reflection is completely up to you, how much reflection you want to keep in, what you want to highlight, what you want to darken. So it's kind of like you know, it's a personal choice really of how far you want to take away the shadows, how far you want to make them, bring them back up. And the way I do it is I just normally just darken everything that's not really white, or anything that's got like some main colour like the reflection of his beak I try and keep in. So I'll just zoom over the rest of it now and just tidy that up a little bit more. As I said, you can do this 1,000 different ways, and there's, you know, you might not want all of this much reflection, you might want bits that aren't on here, so it's just all personal choice. Once I've done this bit, you can see here around here it's kind of gone red. Now obviously I don't want that, and there's a few other little tiny bits around here, little dots here and there, that I just want to tidy up a little bit more. So what I'll use then is the brush up here, which is the spot healing brush. Now you can either use the spot healing brush, or you can use the paint tool, set it to black and then just dot over it, but I'll use the healing brush. So once you've got the healing brush here, you want it to content aware at the top, and then just paint over the bits that you want to kind of heal. You haven't got to be, again, you haven't got to be too perfect with it, because it's going to be changed a little bit more. So in the reflections you will see some little dots on, you know, little spots in the water that you might not want. So just click over those and it'll just get rid of those. So that's kind of it for now on the water. I've kind of got like a bit of a reflection of where I want. Now pretty much the same kind of technique is now I go around the edges of the bird with the burn tool. So what I'll do is I'll click on the background layer, right click, and I will duplicate the layer. So now I've got another layer at the top, and again I'll click on the burn tool on the mid-tones, and I'll keep the exposure roughly the same, but this time I'll make the brush a little bit smaller. So you make the brush smaller by going up to this kind of dot under image, and you can change the size of the brush and the hardness. Now I still want it to be soft, so I'll keep it at 0%, but I'll just make the brush a little bit smaller. And then what I do then is I go around the edges of the bird, around the feathers, and just make sure that there's no kind of background still left on there. It kind of sharpens it up, but at the same time it also kind of blends the edges of the feathers that are darker in a bit, so they're not so in your face. Just go around the edges of all the bird. You might need to go over a few bits once or twice. It depends on how good or what kind of colour the background was. Which is something like that. Now I swap between Lightroom and Photoshop. So before I go back to Lightroom, I'm just going to sharpen a few bits. So you go to the triangle here, which is a sharpen tool, and make the brush a little bit bigger, and I just want to sharpen the eye, some of the beak, some of the feathers. Again, you just sharpen where you want to sharpen, where you want to bring out the details, but don't go too much, just a little bit here and there, and I'll keep the strength around 49%. Just before I go back over to Lightroom, I don't like this corner here, it's quite sharp, so I'm just going to burn that in a little bit more. So once I've done that, I'll go to File, Save, and what that does is it saves it again back into Lightroom. So when I click on Lightroom at the bottom, it opens back up in Lightroom with the new edit. So once in Lightroom, I'll make a few more slight adjustments. I'll probably bring the clarity up a little bit more, the vibrance, maybe bring the texture down, the shadows up a little bit more, highlights. Something around that. Now the next step, what I do is I open this up in Topaz Denoise, which gets rid of some of the noise from the original image. Now there are ways of doing it in Lightroom if you want to, by adjusting the sharpness and the masking. Now the masking only kind of highlights and selects the actual object itself. Now if you hold Alt down and adjust the masking, you will see what's being affected with the sharpening. Now you only kind of want the bird itself, you don't want at the other end of the spectrum where everything in the background is being sharpened like that. So adjust the masking until it's just what you want sharpening. Remember, just keep down holding the Alt button on your keyboard, and then you can just sharpen what parts of the image you want sharpening. Like I said, that's the way of doing it in Lightroom, but I like to do it in Topaz Denoise. So again, right click, editing, and editing Topaz Denoise. And in Topaz you have 4 boxes. You have the original, a clear version, a low light, and a severe noise. You can move these boxes around to see how it's going to be affected once you apply each one. Now I always go for the low light. I just think it makes it a little bit smoother and not as sharp looking and over processed. So I click on the low light, and I also decrease the enhanced sharpness. I don't want it sharpened too much. So it'll give you a preview here of what that'll turn out like, and then just click apply. Once that's done, it loads up the new cleaned up version, and we're almost there. So once again, I'll go to Photoshop and I'll close that last image down, back into Lightroom, and again I'll send it to Photoshop. So editing Photoshop. So that's back open in Photoshop again. I'm going to duplicate a layer. Again, go to the burn tool, and I'm just going to go over the background just to make sure that there's no little spots that were bright that weren't kind of burnt out when we used the tool in Lightroom at the beginning. Obviously if you use the magnifying glass you can zoom in a lot more and see right around the edges where you may have missed. Now I'm just going to tidy it up just a little tiny bit more around here by darkening some more of the water. And then maybe sharpen up a few pieces that Topaz has kind of took the sharpness away from it. And there you more or less have it finished. It's just a matter then of, you know, adding your little personal touches to what you want brighter and darker. Now you do that by using the burn tool, so you can burn over some of the bright bits of the feathers if they're a little bit too bright, and the edges to soften the edges. If you do it right on the edges, it will take the sharpness away from the actual photo, so it doesn't look as pointy and as crisp. One thing I like to do is with the eyes, sometimes the eyes are never quite bright enough, so you can kind of enhance those just a little bit by going to the dodge tool, clicking on midtones. Make the size of the brush roughly to the size of the eye. Give that a few little touches which will just make the eye pop a little bit more. And that's about it. There's a few more finishing touches you can do if you just want to make it pop a little bit more. Is again by just saving this. It'll open up back in Lightroom, and then you can kind of just bump the vibrance up if you want some more. Saturation for the colour. And then you can also obviously individually bump up what colour you want. So you can make the beak a little bit redder. Also brings out the feathers underneath. If you don't like the green in the water, obviously just drop the green completely down. And then it's just a matter of personal taste really, to just alter it how you want to alter it. You can make it softer by lowering the dehaze and lowering the texture, or you can make it sharper and crisper by increasing it. And then obviously Lightroom comes with a load of presets, so sometimes I'll just go through the presets, just having a look if there's kind of like a particular look or colour scheme that I like, and it's pretty much easy then to change it to personal taste. Now with the presets, obviously it doesn't work on everything, and you might have to adjust the colours in certain images, but once you've kind of got the main finish how you want it, most of the presets look good to start with. And that's it. That's basically it. So I hope I've helped you out and made it look easy, because it really is. And to do an edit like this, you can literally do it in 5 minutes. So that's it. I hope it's helped one or two of you out, and maybe you've learnt something. Maybe you can teach me something. Maybe you can drop something in the description below saying, why don't you do it that way? There's another way of doing it. You know, I'm free to any kind of tips myself. As I said, I'm still learning. And yeah, that's about it. So again, if you could like the video, give it a thumbs up, and if possible, subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. So until next time, thanks for watching.